Hello friends, today I am going to reveal some true facts of symptoms of the homeopathic medicine Aconitum Napellus. First of all, I request you to please share and subscribe my channel for getting my informative true facts videos uninterrupted. Symptoms of homeopathic medicine Aconitum Napellus. Aconite is a short-acting remedy. Its symptoms do not last long. Symptoms of aconite don't last long. It is a violent poison in large doses, either destroying life or passing away in its effects quite soon, so that if the patient recovers, the recovery is not delayed. There is no chronic disease following it. Like a great storm, it comes and sweeps over and passes away. By little meditation, we will discover what kind of sickness all this is like, and what kind of a patient is most likely to have that sudden sickness. If we think a moment from experience and homeopathic observation, we will remember that vigorous, plethoric individuals, when they take cold, come down violently and so suddenly sick. From this, and from examining the sudden effect of aconite, it will be easy to see that persons who come down with aconite sickness are plethoric individuals. Strong, robust people, young children and infants become sick, not a very slight cold or from slight exposure, but from more violent exposure. From being exposed with deficient clothing, from sudden violent changes, from prolonged exposure to cold, north, dry wind. A vigorous person caught out with thin clothing or remaining out in the cold, dry year of midwinter with its sudden violent changes comes down even before night and violent symptoms. This is the class of patients, the plethoric and vigorous, who have a strong heart, active brain, vigorous circulation, and come down suddenly from violent exposure, that need aconite. Aconite has in its nature none of the results usually following inflammation. The storm is over so quickly that it seems mostly to conform to the earlier condition. In the vigorous patient, sudden congestions are likely to be thrown off by good reaction. The patient seems to be threatened with a sudden and violent death, but recovery is quick. So, as we observed by Dunham, it is a great storm and soon over. Dunham's discussion of this remedy in his Materia Medica is very poetical and well worth reading. Attack come on suddenly from exposure to dry cold wind. Attacks come on suddenly from exposure to dry and cold wind. In plethoric children, we have an illustration of that in the sudden congestion of the brain with intense fever or with convulsions. We got illustrations of its sudden and violence in an organs of the body, the brain, the lungs, the liver, the blood, the kidneys. It is suited to the complaints that come on suddenly from the very cold weather of winter or from the intensely hot weather of summer. It has the lung and brain complaints of winter and the bowel inflammation and stomach disorder of summer. We know how these plethoric individuals become suddenly overheated and become violently sick. The sudden attack are fateful to look upon. In all these inflammatory conditions are attended with great excitement of the circulation, violent action of the heart, a tremendous turmoil of the brain, a violent shock and intense fear. The mind symptoms that are nearly always associated with aconite conditions stand out in bold relief. The mind symptoms that are nearly always associated with aconite conditions stand out in bold belief. The patients feel the violence of his sickness, for he is under great nervous irritation and excitement. Fear is depicted upon his countenance, and the heart's actions is so overwhelming. The first thing he think of it is that he must die. He thinks that he must die. This must means death, which he fears, which the patient fears. It stands out upon his countenance. He says, "Doctors, there is no use, I am going to die." Many times he actually predicts the moments on the hour of his death. Many times he actually predicts the moments or the hour of his death. If a clock is in the room, he may say that when the hour has reaches a certain point, he will be corpse. When we see this intense fear, this awful anxiety, great restlessness, the violence and the suddenness of these attacks, we have a case perhaps that is dying from the poison of aconite, or one who needs aconite. The patient needs aconite in all its symptoms. One who has a sickness resembling the poison of aconite needs the smallest possible dose of aconite. It is a very short acting medicine, and that must be remembered. It is a very short acting medicine, and that must be remembered. It hardly matters what part of the body we are considering, we will find inflammatory conditions. But regardless of the reason of the locality of the inflammation, that which I have described is the appearance of the patients. Such are the symptoms that will stand out, that you will observe first. That you will observe first. The appearance of the fact, the mind of symptoms, the restlessness, the intensity. Now, there are many little mental symptoms that are of much less importance that this fear, this anxiety symptoms that will mask with these marked by symptoms that indicate the patient. He has lost all affections for his friends. He doesn't care what becomes of them. He has not the slightest interest in them. If something may be a state of indifference, what I have brought out with an no one or readily, so you will see that this picture doesn't belong to all the remedies in the materia medica. In fact, it belongs only to aconite. No matters what remedy you compare this with, you would find it only under aconite. You will find some of the features in the text under other remedies, but those which I have mentioned collectively will be found only under aconite. Take the mental symptoms. Intensity marks every one of them. If it is delirium, it is an intense delirium with excitement, with fear, with anxiety. Patients in deliriums with excitement and fear will deep and in great torments, great excitement, fear of death. You wonder what she is weeping about. There are all sorts of mood intermingled also with the fear of aconite. There is mourning and irritability, anger, throwing things away, all attended with the violence and anxiety. These features that I described are uppermost, are intermingled with all the other symptoms. Screams with pain. The pains are the pains are like knives. They are stinging, cutting, stabbing. The intensity of the aconite suffering is wonderful. So that if the nerves take an neuralgic pain, the pains are intense. It is the feeling that some awful things must be upon him, or he could have such a dreadful suffering. It says in the text, predicts the day of his death. Predicts the day of his death. This is to great extent in the result of the awfulness that seems to be the overwhelming him. And this mental picture is always present in pneumonia, in inflammatory conditions of any part of the body, inflammation of the kidneys, of the liver, of the bowels, etc. Dizziness prevails throughout all the symptoms pictures. Vertigo, turning and whirling. A woman out shopping runs up suddenly against a door and becomes violently dizzy. She cannot even get to her carriage. Vertigo that comes on from fear, from sudden fear, and the fear of the fright remains. There is a remnant of that fear left, but it will lead you or more strongly towards opium, complaints from fever, inflammation of the brain from the dizziness from fear, even congestion of parts as a result of fear, a turmoil in the whole sensorium, Things go round and round. The headaches can hardly be described. They come with such violence. Tearing, burning in the brain, in the scalp, attended with fear, with anguish, headaches from taking cold, from suppressing catarrh in the nose. Catarrh stops suddenly in plethoric people from exposure, from riding in the dry, cold wind, such as we have in the northern climate in winter. Violent headache over the eyes, congestion of the brain, with congestion headache, with anxiety, with hot face. These symptoms would to give aconite for affection of the eye are numerous. Eyes takes on sudden inflammation, congestion of the eye, blood red appearance of the eye, sudden inflammation of all the tissues, conjunctivitis, from taking cold from exposure to dry cold wind. There is a teaching that has long prevailed, give aconite for the first stage of an inflammation. It is not good teaching, although it is recommended in all of our books. It doesn't say for what kind of a constitution or how it comes about. Do not practice that way. Get all the elements for an aconite case, if possible, or give a better remedy. Another practice has prevailed, for example, giving aconite for fever. Aconite was the fever remedy for many of our early routinists, but it is a bad practice. Aconite has an inflammation of the eyes. Aconite has an inflammation of the eyes that comes on so suddenly that one wonders how did inflammation come in so short time. The eyes takes on great swelling without any discharge or only very watery mucus. The sudden inflammation that comes on with a thick discharge would never be aconite. Aconite has no result of inflammation. Remember, aconite has no results of inflammation. Those conditions that are about to take on the result of the inflammation will always indicate some other remedy. You are not to think of aconite in fever unless the aconite patient is present. With aconite fever, there will be sensitiveness to light. With this aconite fever, there will be sensitiveness to light, great restlessness with fever, eyes staring, with pupils contracted, violent itching and inflammation of the deep structure of the ball. Give aconite only when the symptoms agree. Give aconite only when the symptoms agree. An inflammation that is about to run a prolonged course to take in suppression, or if it is a mucous membrane or take a discharge of pus, which will never show you the symptoms of aconite. Never give aconite in blood poisoning. Such as we find in scarlet fever, in typhoid fever, etc. We find nothing of the violent symptoms of aconite in such conditions. The nervous irritation is never present, but the opposite, the stupor, the laziness, the purple skin, whereas aconite is bright red. Never give aconite for any form of zymosis, for it has no zymotic history. Never give aconite for any form of zymosis, for it has no zymotic history. There should be no thought of aconite. There should be no thoughts of aconite in the slow coming continued fever, slow coming continued fever. Aconite has no symptoms like the slow types of continued fevers. Aconite has no symptoms like the slow types of continued fevers. The aconite fever is generally one short, sharp attack of fever. Aconite symptom is sharp attack of fever. If it is in no way related to the intermittent fever, it has no such symptoms. You might find something that would deceive you in one attack of intermittent fever, but the very fact that there was a second one would shut out aconite. Some remedies have periodicity or waves. Aconite has no such condition. The most violent attack of fever will subside in the night if aconite is the remedy. The most violent attack of fever will subside in the night if aconite is the remedy. If it is not, it is a pity that you make a mistake in giving it, for it will sometimes do mischief. All things that exist in the sickness must be taken into account. Remember, all things that exist in a sickness must be taken into account. Not only what the remedy does cover, but what it does not cover. Aconite has an inflammation of the eyes with burning and sudden swelling. The lids swells so rapidly that they cannot be opened except with great difficulty, and when they are forced open by seizing the margins of the lids, and periods of forceps drops of hot water will fall out for no pus. This comes on rapidly from taking cold. Whenever there is inflammation of the mucous surfaces, bloody water is apt to flow. Suddenly the blood vessels becomes engorged and ooze. The blood vessels ruptures and the capillaries ooze. Inflammation of the ear comes on just suddenly. Throbbing intense cutting pain in the ear. Throbbing intense cutting pain in the ear. The child comes home after being out in the cold north wind and is not sufficiently clad, and now it screams and puts its hand into the ear. The attack comes on early in the evening after being out in the daytime. The attack comes on early in the evening after being out in the daytime. Fever and anxiety, child must be carried. The suffering is intense, intolerable. Music goes to every limb, so intense in the sense of hearing. Everywhere in the body will be find that some intense conditions of the nerves. Whenever there are complaints, they are intense. Violent, and the patient is always in a state of anxiety and irritability, stinging, burning, rending, tearing, cutting pain in the ear. Coryza is attended with violent headaches, coming out in the night after exposure and taking cold during the day. Suddenly, this short-acting, very quick-acting remedy will be indicated. The coryza that comes on from carbobase comes on several days after the exposure. The coryza that comes on from sulfur also develops several days after the exposure. The carbobase patients become overheated. Remember, the carbobase patients become overheated and takes cold by keeping on the overcoat when he comes into your office. The carbobase patients become overheated and takes the cold by keeping on his overcoat when he comes into your office. And in aconite, he goes out in the cold air with his light clothing and comes down if he is a plethoric individual before midnight. but especially is it often indicated in the coryza of the rosy, chubby, plethoric baby, not in the sickly or pale ones. These sickly ones will come down, they come down later. Their vital activities are so reduced that their complaints do not come on, sometimes for 2 or 3 days. So that if you take a sickly one and vigorous one in the same family and expose them both, one will have croup tonight and need aconite, and the others will have in the next morning and need heparin. These symptoms likely to occur with coryza are nosebleed, headaches, anxiety and fear. The anxious expressions are the first thing observed in the aconite sufferers. The aconite pneumonia will often show itself on the face. Look at the face. Look at the face. There is a great anxiety. It shows much of the proving of aconite. You know, there is much in the expression of the faces that will enable one to read all that is going on the body, going on its body. It tells you the story, the pleasure and sadness and the distress of the human family, much of which you can generalize and see at a glance, and come great things have happened. You have only to guess once or twice before you hit it. Here you have the anxiety. One cheek red and the other pale. One cheek red and the other pale. It is a good many remedies, but the anxious expressions and the fear and the heat and the restlessness and the suddenness with which it comes out in the plethoric individuals. Yesterday it was very dry and windy, and you will be once place this one symptoms with aconite. But it might be one of the several other remedies where other conditions present. Neuralgic pain in the face, like hot wires running along either side of the face. The individual writes in the cold, raw wind, and his faces were exposed to the cold wind. He becomes numb and pain sets in, intense pain. He cries out and shrieks and the knife like cutting pains. Aconite will relieve. Crawling, creeping like ants. Aconite has that sensations along the course of the nerves. It has sensations that ice water poured along the course of the nerves. Sciatica, when the sensation is felt down the nerves like ice water. Creeping, tingling and crawling on the face. Creeping, tingling and crawling in the face with or without pain, with or without pain. The intense heat, intense fever in the face. The side of the face laid on will often break into a sweat, and if the patient turns over, that sides will at once become dry, and the other side will be at once break out in the sweat. Or what is confronting remedy? It is for touches. It has been so useful to touches that nearly older lady nowadays knows enough to put a drop of aconite on a bit of cotton and put it on the old hollow tooth. It will quite often palliate. The dose of aconite will act much better, but the violence of the toothache, again in the same old story, from the dry, cold winds, plethoric individuals with hollow teeth, pain intense, cutting, shooting pains in the teeth. Sometimes these pains are in the sound teeth and affect the whole row of teeth. Violent pains from exposure, such as riding in the wind. The pains are relieved and go away speedily after a dose of aconite. Disturbances of taste, disordered stomach, everything tastes bitter except water. I know how the aconite patients longs for water. It seems almost impossible for him to get water enough, and it agrees well. Burning is a symptom that runs all through the remedy. You will find it descriptive of all the pains. Burning in the head, burning along the course of nerves, burning in the spine, burning in fever, sometimes burning as if covered with paper. Aconite is very useful medicine in inflammation of the throat. Aconite is very useful medicine in inflammation of the throat when there is burning, smarting, dryness, great redness of the tonsils or the fuses, the whole throat. Sometimes the soft palate is greatly swollen. A high grade of inflammation, acute inflammation of all that can be seen and called throat, but that alone could not indicate aconite. It cures that kind of case in cures inflammation of the throat, but every homeopathic physicians know that 40 or 50 remedies could be selected just as well as aconite from all that I have said. I have only mentioned a non-descriptive case. No homeopathic physicians could prescribe upon that kind of evidence. But you know the kind of thought. Every physician must ask himself the question, what would make this kind of thought in an aconite case? And then the question could come up, could be not prescribed for it as well. It had not seen the thought. The thought doesn't do much towards representing as an intelligent physician the patients. If it is necessary to represent in the mind of physicians the inflamed part itself, how would we try to deliver? He cannot see it. How would he be prescribed for the stomach? He cannot see it. We are then compelled to fall back upon which represents the intelligent physicians, the very nature of the patient himself, and then at once we will see the reason for some of these things. If you present the aconite patients, with well before the mind, you can prescribe. It would be well to see anything that is visible. If you could see the liver, I could say, look at it. If you could see the heart, I would say, examine it. What is in the throat that is really present to the patient? Of course, any soreness of the throat makes it difficult to swallow. I mean, to infer that there is nothing in the sureness to represent the physicians, the aconite patients. If that individual were a plethoric individual, if he had been riding in a cold, raw wind, a good start of the day, and had back into the night with violent burning, tearing of sore throat, and he could not swallow, and the fever came on high, remember, and he had thirst for cold water, and he could not get enough of it. He was in an anxious, feverish state. You have been a patient to prescribe for. Many times will patients become intelligent enough under your observation to write just what some member of the family acts like. You know just what the patients look like. The black man sometimes will give the best kind of the descriptions better than the washer and washer girl, and they write such, doctor, will you please send the medicine? I have looked into the throat and it is it. With the stomach symptoms, what an anxious patient we have. The pains are dreadful. Burning pains, tearing pains, with anxiety and restless, with fever coming on from taking cold, not for overeating, but for taking cold which has settled in the stomach from exposure to an ice bath or in a very hot summer from intense heat associated with irritable brains in vigorous children. Vomiting and retching, tearing as it were, the very inside out of the awful retching. The vomiting of blood, right red blood. This is descriptive of general stomach and trouble. During this febrile state, he crafts the bitter things, wine and beer and brandy, and that will come up as soon as they reach their stomach. He crafts pungent things, nothing just bitter enough. If he could only get something bitter, and yet his food tastes bitter, everything he eats tastes bitter, everything except water. This word in